Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is Monday, October 6th. And yeah, I'm doing a live stream tonight. I think it's going to be an interesting topic. It's one I wanted to do for a while. My daily videos, I do the top news stories of the day, and I will do that again tomorrow. But I thought for this, we just kind of dig into the question of another civil war in America. I know that seems unthinkable, or at least it did just a few years ago, but some people predicted it. Some people predicted it. And so we'll discuss that. And before I kick off, if you have any questions and you want to interact with the show, I do appreciate it. You guys help support me. YouTube has SuperChats, Rumble has Rants, and there's a Powerchat link here, right here, that you guys can send Powerchats to. In fact, let me bring the Powerchats up. I forgot to bring that up beforehand, and I'll get to your questions and we can discuss this. As I said, this did seem unthinkable until fairly recently. All right, I got that up. And in the 90s, I think it was 1992, there was a book called Civil War II that was written by Thomas Chittum. We're going to discuss a lot of his concepts. And here's the cover of his book back then, Civil War II, The Coming Breakup of America. So this was, so we're 25, so it's like 30 some years ago. But he was ahead of his time. Thomas Chittum, he, I think, could see things, what was happening to this country that most people didn't see in the early 90s. Thomas Chittum was an interesting guy, though, and he wasn't a professional writer or anything like that. He was a former military veteran and mercenary, and he fought, I think, in the Vietnam War for the United States. And then as a mercenary, I believe, fought in Rhodesia. And then he fought in Yugoslavia, the Croatian War. And the war in Yugoslavia, the civil war that was happening between the Croats and the Serbs and the Muslims, Yugoslavia was sort of a fake country made up of all these different ethnicities. And back then, he could see that no, diversity is definitely not a strength when you have a country. In fact, unity is a strength, not diversity. The more you have in common, whether it's racially, the same language, the same religion, the same customs, the more stable the country will be. But the more diverse you have it, let's say you have multiple ethnicities, like they had in Yugoslavia, different languages, different religions, you have a powder keg. It's not a stable situation. This is how people are wired. And he saw that firsthand as a mercenary. And he saw, even in the early 90s, what was potentially happening in America. And again, in 1992, this was still a very different country than it is now. It was still an extremely white country for the most part. Yeah, we did have a Mexican illegals. That was an issue, but that was about it. We didn't have all these Haitians or Somalis or Indians. It wasn't anything like that. It was still pretty much what the old America, but it was changing. And Chittum could see that, and he could see the propaganda at the time trying to bring all these different people in the world in. And so he wrote a book called Civil War II, how there would be another civil war. And when we talk about civil war, one of the problem is we in America, we tend to think back to the 1860s, from 1860, 1865, the American Civil War, the battle between the states. But that Civil War was different than many civil wars. I think if we go through a civil war in the United States, which we could potentially be heading for, it's not going to be a battle between the states where we're going to have the northern states against the southern states. It's a lot more complex than that. It's more similar to the civil war that happened in Spain in the 1930s. And if you look at my poster here, this guy named Michael D, he sent me this poster from Europe. It's the Azul division, and they were a Spanish division that fought for the Nazis. They were volunteers. And the Hitler and the Germans, they supported the nationalists in Spain during the Civil War. And this was before World War II. The Germans, they provided the Luftwaffe and air support. It was a very bloody war. And on one side, you had the communist, and on the other side, you had the nationalist. It was a war based mostly on ideology, left wing versus right wing factions. And it was horrible. It was really bloody. The communists would dig up the graves of nuns and desecrate them, just horrible stuff like we would see with woke people today. That was definitely the issue there. And whereas the American Civil War is like two organized sides, the Union and Confederacy with clear geographical lines, and you had traditional large-scale battles like Shiloh, Gettysburg. You didn't really have that in the Spanish Civil War. It was a lot. There was some conventional warfare, but there's a lot of guerrilla tactics. There was a lot of terrorism and political purges. And so I think the situation we have now in the United States is more like the Spanish Civil War in the 30s, because we're not really so much divided in a geographic sense. You could think of it, oh yeah, California is a blue state and Arkansas is a red state. But if you dig deeper, a place like a college town like Fayetteville, Arkansas is closer to liberal California than it is Arkansas. And there's places in California outside of the major cities that are very conservative. They would have more in common with people in Arkansas. So it's not really the defined North versus South or slave states versus free states. There's not that designation. If anything, it's almost rural versus the countryside, the traditional people versus the communists and people that hate God. And we saw that in Spain, like the communists, they had their strongholds in Madrid and some of the cities. And the nationalists, they were more popular in rural areas. And so I think if we have a civil war, we're going down that route. And one of the things that Thomas Chittum did, and I want to go over these in the show today, is he had let's see here, is 36 items at the back of the book. And by the way, you can get his book. It's called Civil War II, The Coming Breakup of America. You can get it on Amazon. They haven't banned it. You could also get it free on the internet, but I guess help the guy out. He at the end, he had 36 items that he said in no particular order that he says is measuring sticks that we're getting close to a Civil War II. So I'm going to review those 36 items to see how close we are in modern America to his prediction of a coming Civil War. And I have to give Thomas Chittum credit. I read his book. And again, he's not a professional author, but he still writes well. He has a lot of experience being a mercenary and seeing all this stuff in diverse countries and guerrilla warfare. So he understands the stuff, the nature of tribalism and how humans naturally are. So I recommend getting it. It's a good book there. But he also helped explain concepts to me that I wasn't really clear on until I read it in the 90s, maybe in the 2000s. I used to always mix up nation and country. And if you guys have watched my videos, you have heard me harp on the position, no, a nation is not the same thing as a country. And we use them interchangeably, but they're actually two different things. And I think this is important to understand. A nation, the word nation comes from the Latin word natio, N-A-T-I-O, which means birth. And we see that in other terms like neonatal ward at the hospital. Neonatal, that means the babies, the birth. That's natio, the nation. So nation meant birth. So it's people related to each other by birth, meaning they have common blood. And so that's a group of people. And I use them as an example, the Japanese people, they are a nation. I would say the Jewish people, even before Israel, they were a nation. They were related by blood. Yeah, they had a religion, but not all Jews follow the religion. In fact, most don't. They're a blood relation. The Cherokee Indians, they're a nation. They don't have a country. They have a reservation, but they don't have a country, but they have a nation. It's by blood. And you can't join a nation. You have to be born into it. So I can't become a Cherokee Indian. I mean, they could give me citizenship or whatever, honor me in the tribe, but I'm still not really a Cherokee Indian. Just like Jared Taylor, even though he was born in Japan, he could never be, let me fix my mic, he could never be truly Japanese because that's not his nation. So that's nation. It's a very important concept. And a country is just a political designation. And nationalism is you tie a nation to a country. And for example, Japan is pretty much a nationalist country because it's composed mostly of Japanese people. I mean, there may be a few others there, but it's Japanese. And this is why we had countries tied to nations, because the people have more in common. And that used to be in the West. You know, when you thought of Germans, you thought of German people, blonde guys, and of the German race. I mean, I'm using race in a loose term. You didn't think of Africans and call them a German. Same with French. And so a country is just a geographic area. And if you have a nation tied to the country, as nationalism is probably the most stable form of government because you're all kind of the same people. You're all the same tribe. Now, you may have disagreements, just like families have disagreements about economics or healthcare or whatever, but fundamentally, you're the same people. And what happens is when you have a country that has multiple nations in it, it's an empire, and it can be unstable. And there's two different types of empires. There's an external empire, which is a little bit more stable. That's like the British Empire was in the 19th century, where Britain, the core, was a white Christian country. If you went back to Britain in the 1800s, you wouldn't see an African or someone that's Chinese, or maybe an occasional, like someone on the boat type of thing, but it'd be very rare. It was like a 99% white country, Christian country. But they had a lot of colonies. They had India, they had Burma, they had Singapore. At one time, they had part of China, the whole bit there, right? And so they had a lot of diverse people that were under the British Empire, but it was controlled by a single nationality, meaning the British people. And in a sense, Rome originally was that way too, before they devalued citizenship. Rome, you had the Roman people, the Latin, their religion, their gods. Racially, they were white, but they controlled a lot of other different people. But it still worked. You got to keep the provinces under control with the legions, or in Britain's case, a British Navy, but it can still work. So that's an external empire. And then you have the worst type is an internal empire, is within your country, you have multiple ethnicities. And I'm not talking the occasional one-off or example or something like that. I'm talking that you have, let me just check here. I just want to make sure yeah, good. Okay. So I'm not talking, when I'm talking in generalities. So it's not like 100%, but if you have multiple people, different nations within your country, you're going to have conflict. And again, you can have one or two that, people that aren't of the same ethnicity, and it's okay. Like Jared Taylor, a white guy, Christian in Japan, wasn't threatening the demographics of Japan, right? It's silly. But if like a million Jared Taylors came over, it could. And that's the problem. When you have multiple nations in a country, it's an internal empire, and it is unstable. And Chittum saw that in Yugoslavia. It was only kept under control. If you're going to have something like that, you have to have a strong internal police force to keep everyone in line, a strong secret police like Tito had. And so you can do it if you have a strong man, but that's the only way that you could do it is through repression. And we're seeing that already in the West, where countries like Australia and Britain and even Canada, as they become more multinational within their country, they're having to use more censorship, more uh, tyranny to keep people under control because you can't allow people to speak freely in that environment and still make it all work. So that was an important concept that Thomas Chittum in his book talked about, and he says it's just a matter of like the sun coming up in the east. If you import enough people, like we in the United States have, and he wrote this in '92, but since then, massive times. You have different nations, like you see in now parts of Minnesota, Minneapolis are no longer they're Somali, they're Muslim. Dearborn, Michigan, Muslim. There's areas of the country that no longer look American. In fact, it isn't. It's a different nation, even though it's in the same country. And he said, when you have that, you're eventually either going to have a police state or you're going to have a civil war to break apart. And Chittum, he didn't advocate a civil war. He said that unless things change, we were definitely going to have a civil war. And he had, again, his 36 items that he said, if we're doing this, this shows that we could be headed to a civil war. And let me just hear. And by the way, guys, I'll take your questions at the end. I just want to keep on track here. So I do appreciate it. It helps support me. So the first item here, and I'm going to up these as we go, is number one. Number one. And this was every time you see a blank for your ethnic group on a form, think Civil War II. And we've seen this for a long time. This means where anytime you have to go somewhere and you have to state your race, think that's a precursor to a civil war because it's no longer, you wouldn't have this years ago in Japan. Like, who are you? What's your ethnic group? Or you're Japanese. It's just common sense. Years ago, it was that way in the United States. I mean, we had American blacks that were called Negroes. That would be one exception, but in general, you're just an American, and we're no longer that. So you have to put your ethnic group first when you go into when you go to the doctor's office. Just recently, I did this. They have to ask you all these questions. They have these silly gender questions now. Are you two-spirit or what? They have that now too. But for a long time, they've had, what's your race? Are you Caucasian? Are you black? Are you Hispanic? You know, the Asian, all that type of stuff. So item one has been here a long time. All right, now let's take a look at item two. I'm going to see if I can update this here in real time here, this banner, and see if this works. I think it will work. Item two. Let me just put an I there. All right, let's see if this works. Does this work? Yeah, item two. This is a big one here. And okay, item two, if illegal aliens are allowed to vote, even in local elections, it will be another unmistakable sign that American citizenship and therefore America itself is finished. And we've seen this a lot with illegals being able to vote. There's been a lot of evidence of that. And there's, I think the left believes that they should be able to vote. So it's one of those things that the Democrats, on for a political basis nationally, oh, that's just a myth. Illegals don't vote. But if you hear them, like at the recent debate, they all support illegals getting on Medicaid, for example, and they do support them to vote. And I think in California, Maryland, and Vermont are three states that right now allow illegals to vote. So they're not even citizens. So that's devaluing your citizenship. And so I would say item two is so we'll just keep track. So we have two items right now that show that we're on the way. All right, here's one that is actually, I think we're doing better than he thought. And let's do this. The abolition of the right to bear arms. Now, the left always brings this up a lot after any shooting or even Charlie Kirk. But I would have to say that we on the right have been pretty good on this. I don't think we're close to abolishing arms or have gun control. And again, there's always a lot of aspects where the left always tries to push on this. But I think we're pretty strong, even maybe even stronger than ever than we were even in the 90s. So that's good. So that one we'll just throw out. I don't see that as a big happening now. All right, number 4. Let's just get number 4 here, and this is it. Yeah, all right. Number 4 is watch for racially split juries. We already see this, and it's a big problem. If a black should kill a white in a black jurisdiction, it's unlikely the black jury will convict. Now, a white jury will convict a white person to kill a black, but blacks are very tribal and they won't do this. There's multiple cases of black criminals walking free despite clear proof of guilt of them killing white people. But again, it just won't be prosecuted. And so we already have item 4, and I would say we're already at that. All right, item 5. And you guys, if you have comments, be sure to check it out. We'll talk about that. And let me copy this over here. Let me copy item 5 over. All right. Item 5, watch for the military to assume police duties. Well, I think we're already to a degree at this point, at least with the National Guard more than ever, especially what's happening in Portland and Chicago, where Trump is trying to bring in the military to gain control over major cities, basically an insurrection because the crime is out of control, and the mayor's actually opposing it. So I would say we're really at this point now, and it is happening right now. All right, let's see here. Item 6. Item 6, we'll take a look at this. And let me copy and paste this in. All right. Item 6 is watch for establishment of elite military force outside the chain of command of regular military to serve as an internal counterinsurgency force. I don't think we've seen this so much. I think maybe the closest that we've seen is the FBI has become used as a political force that is outside of the chain of command of the military, but in many cases acts like a military organization. But so far, I don't see this, although I can see this definitely happening. So I'll give that partially. All right, number 7. Let's look at number 7 and see if this fits here. Number 7 is definitely one I think we are at now, is watch for Washington, D.C. to increasingly resemble the capital of some banana republic under siege by revolutionaries and mobs. I think we've seen this. I mean, and again, he wrote this book in 92. But if you think about Trump, what happened when he was his first election, how Antifa, they set Washington on fire. I think we're seeing more and more mobs in Washington, D.C., and Trump had to put the National Guard in. So it is getting a feel that Washington, D.C. is under siege by various revolutionaries and mobs like Antifa and so forth. I would say definitely this is a yes. All right, so that would be a yes. Then we'll go through and we'll count them up and see where we are here. All right, now we're on number 8. And number 8, I would say, is a yes. Is number 8, resegregation. Watch for Africans and other minorities demanding and often getting separate facilities for themselves. Another clear sign that they're continuing to reject, cooperation. And again, since he wrote this, this definitely has happened. We can't have white-only spaces, but every other group demands their own spaces, like black graduations or a black prom, and so forth. We're seeing this all the time, or various Black groups. And so we are getting more and more segregation one way. Whites aren't allowed to do this. They call them safe spaces. This is considered, they feel they have a right to be separate from white people, which, by the way, I don't object to. But it puts a lie to the idea that they're all integrating, we're all one people. They see themselves as a separate people than us. And that is definitely the case. All right. Number 9 is definitely one we're seeing too. So all these things are coming to a head. Number 9, watch for further replacements of individual rights by group rights based on ethnic groups. And again, this was all the DEI was talking about, trying to get rid of that. I know Trump's trying to push away on this, but this is like looking at people, and how you sentence someone is based on their race. So if they're Black, they get a more lenient sentence because we don't want Black bodies in jail. We saw this after George Floyd. And Britain's going through this. They have a 2-tier justice system. So if you're a white person and you do a crime, you're going to serve longer in Britain than if you're, let's say, from Pakistani. You're from Pakistan. So we are definitely, that is underway. All right. Let's see. Item number 10. This is I would say, a potential. Watch for non-governmental organizations acquiring military power. This could be out, maybe like, I don't know, Blackwater or something like that. But it could also mean, I would say, groups like Antifa that start acting more as militias, and we're seeing riots and stuff like that. So you could see that as a little bit that's happening. So I would say that's partially true. Item 11 is definitely the case, and we'll show that real here quick. Item 11 is watch for real political power to continue to shift from our elected officials to the courts, and thus away from the American people. Well, yeah, this is dead on. You see right now some Antifa sympathetic judge in Portland has overturned Trump bringing the National Guard in. We've seen this over and over. Pretty much the courts are trying to usurp the power of the people, and we definitely see that happening. So that is definitely a yes. Number 12, I would say, is something in progress. It hasn't happened altogether, but we are coming here. And number 12 is watch for more instances of real political power flowing from American institutions to international bodies. And this was the idea. They were really trying to do this with like the COVID and the World Health Organization, the Great Reset. This has happened more with Europe, with the EU, where the Europeans, their governments don't really care about them. The EU is more important. And we've seen a little bit this happen in the United States, but thankfully Trump has pushed back on this. But this is something that we'll have to keep an eye on. I would say this is partially true. We'll see on that. Okay, number 13, this is an easy one. It is definitely the case. Again, when Chittum wrote the book, maybe it wasn't such obvious, but now I would say definite. Watch for minorities and radical whites to continue seize control of American institutions. Well, definitely, especially special radical white, let's just put it that way. They definitely have controls over our institutions like the media, big tech, not just the special whites, but a lot of Indian presence now. And these institutions are not controlled by traditional Americans. So I would say, yeah, this is 100% where there's not much more to show on this. it is definitely happening. All right. This one is interesting because a lot of these things, we see that are happening on the left, but some of these are on the right. Item 14, watch for secessionist movements and other movements seeking autonomy on American soil. Here in Arkansas, we've already seen this. In northeastern Arkansas, so it's kind of far from where I live, there's a return to the land movement, which is an area for white onlys. And it is legal because it's private. It's not real estate. And there have been some attempts for blacks to create something similar. But I think we're seeing more and more of this is gaining steam and will become more and more popular as people want to separate themselves from the dysfunction of diversity. And again, we've often talked now about the national divorce. This is becoming more and more the thing. So I would say this is definitely one that is a yes. All right. Okay. Number 15, I would say we're at this point now. Let's take a look at 15. 15 is watch for race-based political parties, a sure sign of racial polarization. We don't have them de jure, but de facto, we're getting close to this. The Republican Party, much to the chagrin of the Republicans, is the white party. And yeah, there's some based Hispanics and blacks, but it's mostly the white party. And the non-white party is mostly the Democrats. And we're seeing much more polarization there. So we're partially there. We're not quite there because Trump did win 42% of the Hispanic vote, but only 16% of the black vote. So we're on the way there, but we're not there exactly. All right. Item 16. This is something that's happened in Europe quite a bit. And I would say it's also happened in America in parts. And you guys can let me know if you agree on this. Let me just update this. All right. 16. Watch for the emergence of no-go areas for the police in our cities, areas abandoned by the police and left to control of street gangs. I know in Sweden this has happened with a lot of Muslim places that the police don't even patrol. There's a lot of gangs and grenade attacks, and the Swedish people really don't control it. And I would say that Trump is trying to counter this, but we've had this issue where like South Chicago has not really been controlled by our people. Memphis is another area. Parts of LA are not really part of the United States. And so we're getting more and more of this happening. This is where the battle line is being formed. So while we started to go in this direction, I would say not only racially, but politically, like in Portland, where Antifa controls it, and in many we're seeing that the police in Portland actually stand down for what is a domestic terrorist organization. So we're starting to see times of that happening. So I would say that has happened. All right, item 17. There's been a lot of talk about, but we're not there yet. This is before they called it reparations. He said, watch for a so-called slave tax refund or some similar vehicle that will automatically subsidize all blacks for life. This is in the reparations area. The blacks, bring this up forever. I mean, I think we more than enough pay for reparations based on trillions of welfare. This is still an issue. It hasn't really happened much. I think didn't California pass something like this, or San Francisco? So there is a movement to do this, but it hasn't gained a lot of steam yet. We haven't seen it happen yet, but I think we are on the way. All right. Number 18 has definitely happened. So Thomas Chittum was right about this. And let's see here. 18, he said this again. We're going over Thomas Chittum. Chittum, Civil War II, the signs, 36 signs that the Civil War II is coming soon. Number 18, watch for court orders and other schemes mandating more voting districts which blacks are intentionally a majority. Oh, well, yeah, there's no argument there. They gerrymander to that for that to be the case, and that is definitely happening. Is happening in many places like Alabama and so forth. But I would say that is definitely a go. So number 18 is a yes. All right. Number 19 now we'll go over. All right. Number 19 is watch for other multi-ethnic empires for ethnic violence, a general loss of democracy. We're seeing that across the world. In Germany, they just canceled the AfD. Le Pen's party again was put out of power even though they won. Romania, they canceled an election. So we're seeing a loss of democracy, increased poverty. I think we're seeing that across the Western world. Waves of refugees. We are seeing that actually happening. And their actual breakup in ethnic warfare. I know Canada has seen this between like Indians and Muslims. So we have their ethnic warfare comes to the United States, or you even see that with Jews and the Palestinians here in the United States. So I would definitely say that as a yes. Number 19 is a yes. All right. Number 20. Again, this is an easy one. I don't know if this existed so much when Chittum wrote the book, but he nailed this. And let me just edit this here. All right. Okay, 20. Watch for the spread of walled suburbs, euphemistically labeled as gated communities. Well, yeah, we have this already. It's a way for white people basically to keep separate from the diversity. Now, a lot of these people are good liberals and they want to call it racial, but that's what it is. Definitely, that is huge. So we have definitely reached that point, headed towards the Civil War too. All right, number 21. This is also a definite yes. Watch for more mind control hoaxes by the establishment media. And again, George Floyd, that was primarily a hoax. He didn't suffocate to death. He was a thug. He wouldn't obey arrest order instructions. That's why he got struggled with. He was full of fentanyl. That was a hoax. We saw the hoax with Jesse Smollett, the lynching hoax. I would say even COVID, that was used. So we're seeing more and more of these hoaxes from the media all the time. It's become standard. So I would say, yeah, definitely that is what's happening. Let's see here. Item 22 he had. And then we'll kind of review these again. Item 22, watch for an increasing percentage of minorities in our military. We definitely saw this with Biden, was trying to purge a lot of the white officers and put in blacks or minorities or women or homosexuals. Pete Hegseth, we're trying to reverse that, but this was definitely a thing. The use of foreigners in our military, we've doing this. This is one of the pathways we gave to become a citizen, where illegals come in or dreamers and they go in the military. And the use of UN troops on our soil, we haven't seen that part. So I would say this has partially happened, not the UN part. The UN never, I don't think the UN will ever happen. It's lost a lot of power, but definitely increasing the minorities in our military in order to gain more control over it. All right. Let's see here. Item 23, again, this is just a standard thing now that I don't even think is controversial. We know it's happened. And watch for more out-of-court settlements in cases of alleged racial discrimination. This is a whole cottage industry where if a black is fired, they'll sue. I used to work in a big corporation, And if you're trying to fire a black, even if they're not doing their job, you have to document, and you still will probably be sued. You got to give a million chances. Now, for a white guy, you don't have to do that. But yeah, these are definitely the cases at this point. Item 24, again, he really nailed this one. And this is before there was really, when he wrote this, even leftists were like, oh, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend with my life for your right to say it. But Chittum saw what was going to happen. Watch for more restrictions on freedom of speech by the government and the establishment media. Well, of course, it's huge. We've seen what's happened, even with the government working with social media. And in Europe, they throw people in jail for criticizing immigration. This is big time. So item 24 is not something that may happen. It is something that has happened totally. Item 25 is also sadly a situation where is another thing that we're at right now. Watch for police to increasingly abandon their traditional uniforms for ones that resemble military and secret police uniforms in their dark color or camouflage, military helmets. Yeah, this is a whole SWAT team. How we no longer have like Sheriff Taylor and Barney. Now it's all these ninjas, and they are military forces. And when the military becomes the police, citizens become the enemy. I think are definitely there. Okay, number 26. I don't know if it's happening. But the Biden administration, the ADL and SPLC were claiming it was happening. I would have hoped it was happening, but I don't know. I don't have any aspect of it. If this is true or not, some of you that are in the military, you may be able to answer this. Watch for clandestine groups of white officers to form within our federal, state, and local police groups similar to the resistors and the Green Berets. So these are kind of secretive groups on a racial basis, in this case, white, to look out for our interests. And again, Biden and the SPLC, ADL, they claim this sort of thing was happening. I haven't heard of it though, so I don't know. So I'll just have to say unknown. All right, item 27. We're gonna let's see here. Watch for an arm of the federal government charged with promoting racist affirmative action, such as Equal Opportunity Commission to acquire agents that carry guns. We haven't got to this point yet. So I would say that is a no. We haven't hit that checkpoint. Item 28 is something that we could be on the way with. This is watch for the collapse of the US dollar as the world's premier currency. This was unthinkable in 1992. Now, this year, we are seeing the dollar's been the weakest it's been in a long, long time due to various things. And there is now potentially a competitor to the dollar with other countries like BRICS. Saudi Arabia may not just sell oil in the dollar anymore. So the dollar is under threat, plus a huge federal deficit, plus other crypto. It could take over the dollar because the dollar, you already see, as we're doing the program now, we're in a government shutdown because our spending is so out of control. They can't reach an agreement of what to do with the budget. So I would say that is definitely a yes. We are there now. All right. So that's a yes. And then we'll go through item 29. Here we go. Item 29. Watch for a growing geographic segregation and increasing mention in the establishment press. And I think we are there. we're seeing a lot of more where people are moving out of black areas or minority areas, and people are leaving California, and so I think we are seeing a general segregation, or people are moving based on demographics. It's been the case for a while, but I think it is definitely accelerating. So I would say that is the case. The item 30. And again, this is something that just definitely when Chittum wrote his book, this wouldn't have been a thing, but I think this is the case now. Item 30, watch for signs that the global military equation and American dominance in it are being challenged. I think we're seeing that right now in real terms, especially with Ukraine, with Russia winning. They have more of a manufacturing capability than the United States does because we've outsourced everything. China is a bigger manufacturing powerhouse than the United States now. Europe is especially weak. And I know Trump is trying to change this, but I don't think America has the military dominance anymore. I'm very skeptical of our capabilities at this point. So I think our dominance is ebbing away. Trump again is trying to change that. I know Pete Hegseth, they're trying to get rid of all the diversity and promoting drag queens and all that stuff in the military, but it's gone down a bad path, and I don't know if they can fix it. All right, here. This is a Canadian one. Watch for the breakup of Canada. If Canada does break up along ethnic and linguistic lines, it will bode ill for the neighbor, which has even worse multi-ethnic and multilingual mismatch. Yeah, Canada has a lot of stresses on it. They talked about the western provinces breaking away because they don't have much in common with the east. I think when Chittum wrote this, he was thinking about Quebec, but it's become even more major because of other ethnicities. Now Canada is so heavily Indian. This is a situation that could happen. So it definitely is for the case. All right. Item 32. I would say this one is not, it was written in a different time. You have to understand. This was watch for an increased flow of Americans immigrating to Canada. Thomas Chittum thought Americans potentially would flee the United States to get away from the ethnic changes, the demographics of what we're experiencing. But this is actually worse now in Canada. Canada has been working to replace their people. And so you can't flee to Canada to get a better demographic situation. So I would say, no, that has not happened. All right. Item 33 is something that we do have, and we've had it for quite a while. So take a look at this here. Yeah, if you guys have questions or comments, just super chat, Rumble. I already see a Rumble rant I'm going to get to, and Powerchats. I'd love to take them for you, and we'll talk. Item 33, watch for political and legal organizations forming along ethnic lines that will parallel and ultimately displace their official rivals. And we already see this, it's like the association, the Black Mayors Conference, or all these type of things. So yeah, we definitely have that already. Item 34, this seems kind of funny because it just we see this all the time now. But back when Chittum wrote this seems still radical that this would happen. Watch for more help wanted ads stating that job applications must be bilingual. We see that a lot now. A lot of places you have to know Spanish. So we are definitely in the case. So I would say that is a one sign there. Okay, item 35 is another, I think, miss by Chittum, or I think he misunderstood. During the 90s, there was still the idea that the UN would be very powerful. And we really haven't seen that happen. But he said, watch for indications that the UN is assuming the role of the world government, that the US is even losing more of its sovereignty to the UN. I mean, there were flashes of this after COVID. You remember the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum. But that has been pretty well resisted. And I mean, it could still happen. I mean, that is their goal of one world government by, I don't know if it's going to be the UN or whatever they may call it, but we definitely haven't seen this. Okay, let's see here. All right, this was a great one because it's something that we definitely have seen, and this is the last one. And I think this is it's a long one, but watch for a certain picture. We've all seen this picture countless times before from Beirut, Budapest, Afghanistan, whatever. A burnout tank, and I couldn't get it all here, with jubilant rebels posing atop of a tank waving assault rifles and a flag. Someday we shall see these pictures in our newspapers again, and it will be on American soil. And let me just see here. I think I have an image that just shows that we've already have seen this. And yeah, here it is. I would say this image right here. If you guys remember this. Okay, someone on top of a burned out police car, fire in the background, waving the Mexican flag. So we have definitely 36. We have reached that point. So now I'm going to go over just kind of a quick summary of these, and we could count them up and see how many were implemented. But I think it was quite a bit here. It was let me go over the signpost again. And again, I will just count the ones that we don't hit, because most of these hit. Every time you see a blank for your ethnic group on a form, think Civil War II, we have that. If illegal aliens are allowed to vote, we do have that. If the abolition of the right to bear arms, that's a no, so that's one we miss. Watch for racially split juries, we have that. Watch for the military to assume police duties. I think we basically have that now in Chicago and Memphis and Portland. The military's trying to do what's traditionally police duties. 6, watch for the establishment of elite military force outside of the chain of command. We don't really have that. So it's 2 misses. 7, watch for Washington, D.C. to increasingly resemble the capital of some banana republic under siege. We have that. There's all razor wire, mobs, and so forth. 8, resegregation. This is like black-only proms and graduations. We have that. Number 9, watch for further replacement of individual rights by group rights. Again, we have that. Number 10, watch for non-government organizations acquiring military power. I would say that we're starting down that road with Antifa and stuff. They're acting like a military organization, so I'll say that's a hit. 11, watch for political power to shift from our elected officials to the courts. We have that. Number 12, watch for more instances of real political power flowing away from American institutions to international bodies. Not so much that, so that's 3 we missed. 13, watch for minorities and radical whites to continue to see control of American institutions. We have that. Watch for secessionist movements. We have that. Watch for race-based political parties. We have that. Watch for the emergence of no-go areas for the police. We have that, South Chicago and other areas, Minneapolis. 17, watch for reparations. We haven't got that. It's been talked about, so I'll say that's a miss there. 4. 18, watch for court orders and other schemes mandating more voting districts in which blacks are, this gerrymandering. We have that. 19, watch for other multi-ethnic violence. And we do have that. 20, watch for the spread of walled suburbs. We have that. Watch for more hoaxes by the establishment media. We have a lot of that. 22, watch for the increase of the percentage of of minorities in our military. And as I said, Biden really intentionally tried to eliminate a lot of the white male officers, so definitely there. 23, watch for more out-of-court settlements in the case of racial discrimination. That's the cottage industry, yes. Watch for more restrictions on freedom of speech by the government and establishment media. We have seen that. The Biden administration pressuring Twitter and YouTube to censor people. 25, watch the police to abandon their traditional roles and uniforms to look more like the police. We have seen that with the SWAT teams. Number 6, watch for white officers to have secret groups. I think that's a myth. Number 27, watch an arm of the federal employment charged with affirmative action to acquire guns. I would say that no. 6, watch for the collapse of the US dollar. I think that's underway. 29, geographic segregation. We're seeing that. 30, the signs the global military and the dominance are being challenged. I think that is happening. Watch for the breakup of Canada. I think we are seeing that. So 7. 6, we've missed so far. 7, item, watch for an increase of flows of Americans immigrating to Canada. That's not happening. So 7. And watch for political and legal organizations among ethnic lines. We have that. 34, watch for more help wanted ads that you must be bilingual. We see that. And 35, watch for more UN role of government. I would say no to that. So it's 8. And 36, watch for the picture of someone standing on a burnout tank or a police car waving a foreign flag. We saw that recently. So out of the 36 items, 28 have met. So we're just, or 28 out of 36. So I think based on Thomas Chittum, we are headed to a breakup that is going to be happening. And I predicted this in the next 10, 20 years. And we're seeing more and more signs of this happening. And even if the Democrats get back in power, they're not going to ease up. It's just going to even get a lot worse and more bloody. And so this is the situation I see there. All right, let me just see here if I do got a rant. Thank you, Pam Hyde. I'm wondering for years how war would be conducted in the Great Plains. I think the Ukraine war answered that question. Trenches, drones, and hiding in tree lines. Hopefully it never happens. Yeah, I think it'd be more militias in the United States. There won't be a front line, even like Ukraine and Russia. They have a front line. I think it's just going to be more like Spain, where that will happen. And so we will see how that happens. All right, now let me that's what I had on Rumble. Let me see if I got some super chats. So thank you guys very much. A super sticker from Ken C, $10. Thank you very much on that. I do appreciate that. So, and then $5. Do you think we'll be able to reverse the demographic changes since 1965? I'm getting annoyed with all these groups trying to change the country. I think we got to work on it. And there's first things first. Trump, and I get it. Trump has, Trump's not like a magician. He can't wave a magic wand and get us back to 1965 demographics. But he did eliminate the illegal immigration. Is pretty much gone now, so that's good. And there is a push to have conditions that is very difficult to be an illegal alien in America. And you don't have to round them up and deport them by ICE, although I support ICE. You could just make it so they can't get a job here, meaning you have to verify that you're a citizen or to get a job, and you can't qualify for welfare, so you can't get handouts. And despite what the Democrats say, illegals, they do get free medical care here. They're not officially on Medicaid, but Medicaid in a roundabout way pays for it. We eliminated that all, but they don't get schooling, they don't get medical care, they don't get any welfare, they will self-deport. So I do think we can reverse it. I don't think we can get back to the level of 1965, but I think there are ways that we can start to help the process. I don't know if that'll be enough, but that needs to be the start. Also, do you think we have our version of a Franco Pinochet? I hope so. I really supported Franco and Pinochet. and he saved Spain. I hope we have that. I don't know if we have that. It's not Trump, I'll tell you that, but I do hope we have that. Lester Johnson, just want to give you a few bucks for the great content. Thank you for the safe space. Thank you. We have our safe space here, so $5. I do enjoy it. It's a little different. I just thought we'd go over the Civil War too. A lot of people talk about it. And again, Thomas Chittum, if you haven't get his book, even though it's how old is that now? It's like 30 years old, the book, but it's still very, very good. Surfing Cowboy, when I was just in China, I am sad for my country's missed potential. People are apolitical and happy. There's zero crime. Everyone is Chinese, yet friendly to foreigners. Infrastructure is a focus of the government. Yeah, this is what you can do. And again, I'm not advocating a Chinese system. We are not Chinese. I don't want Chinese over here. I have nothing against the Chinese, but this is America. But that's an example. When you have pretty much a homogenous population, you don't have to focus on diversity. You can focus on promoting the best people and focusing on the infrastructure. And I would say China is light years ahead of us now in infrastructure. America's really shitty now. It's a rundown country. It really is. It's a dilapidated country. It's embarrassing to say that. I'm an American. But if you go, I remember Tucker Carlson got into a lot of trouble because he was he went to the Moscow subway and it was clean, beautiful compared to New York City. Oh, you're a Putin propagandist. No, it's true. I was in Budapest. It was that way too. It was modern. It was clean. And we just can't build anything anymore. Part of it's legal because all the lawyers, part of it's diversity. We don't have the people that will be able to do the job. It's really depressing out in America. So thank you, Surfing Cowboy. I think a lot of people, United States used to be the greatest, but no more. Those days are gone. So that is it. So thank you very much for that. And let me just check to make sure if I have any other comments or questions. I do appreciate all your feedback here, guys. And all right. So let's see. It's been a little over just an hour, so it's perfect timing. And again, guys, thank you so much for supporting the show. I do appreciate it. And I will be back to my regular videos through the rest of the week. I look forward to that. And next Monday, I'll be back live streaming and I don't know, pick another topic. But thank you guys. I appreciate it. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.